This is a story of a sideboard that was well loved by a family. It meant a lot of sentimental value, and they decided to do something with it when the mum had to go into sheltered accommodation, and I was asked to make a cigar box guitar for the son and some trinket boxes for the two daughters and the son's wife and the mother. So I ended up making 4 little trinket boxes, and I actually made 2 cigar box guitars. That's one you can hear now. And I started off, I cut all of the frame up and took all the screws out, and I glued all of the pieces together to form the material I was going to turn the neck into. I used Gorilla Glue, the polyurethane glue, to be able to glue it all up, and then let it set overnight prior to cutting it all up ready for turning it in the lathe. So here I'm cutting all the wood up, and it's getting cut up on the bandsaw. I surface planed it to get rid of the glue marks and just to square it up before it went on the lathe. But the top and the sides and the drawers, they were used to make the box for the cigar box guitars, but they were also used to make the trinket boxes as well. So cleaning off all of the polyurethane glue and then squaring up the ends with the DeWalt chop saw, getting ready to turn it on the lathe. There were just a couple of screws. They were sort of security screws because each end would be kept square, so I wouldn't have caught it with the spindle rough and gouge, and it was a bit of a belt and braces job really. So I used a parting tool to get it down to its initial thickness on the neck, which was around about 48mm, and then I went on to a spindle roughing gouge and I started to take it out in sections of about 100–125mm, 4 to 5 inches, and work along the whole length of the neck until I had it all into its largest diameter. And I'm using an Amiga stubby lathe here. And the good thing about the stubby lathe is the bed actually pulls out so that you can get around about 42 inches between centres, which is about 1.50 m, and also you've got a couple of banjos there on the bed extension, which was ideal. So I'm taking the sacrificial screws out now, splitting the paper joint with the bevel edge chisel, so you end up with 2 neck profiles. And now I'm planing the pieces and then cutting the shape of the head on the bandsaw, cut the shape of the tail, and then we shall continue and start marking out for the fret markers and fretboards. Using the little fret saw to cut the head off and create the actual position for the nut on the neck, and then cut the section out at the bottom that was going to go into the cigar box that I would make. So here we are, we're making the sides of the cigar box now, and the top and the bottom on the bandsaw. I was splitting each piece in half to end up with a 1/2 inch 12mm piece that would be planed at 45 degrees on the edges so that all you see is the actual satin walnut veneer. You can see it's white wood that the veneer has been put onto. So sticking them through the planer thickness set to make sure that they're all the same dimension. Cutting the fret marks on the fretboards, and what I did, I actually glued bits of mahogany from the sideboard and I glued them in sections so that they were glued at the actual fret marks, and then I opened up the glue ups with the fret saw so that the fret wire itself would fit exactly into it. So using a nylon hammer to knock the fret wire in, and then a file just to file the edges off. The screws that I used to screw the mahogany together with were the fret markers. Semicircle with the compass, and then I cut the semicircle out using a very fine blade and the DeWalt jigsaw. So here we are, the boxes are being made. I fitted the necks into the boxes, and the next thing that I'm going to need to do is start to stain up and start the finishing process. So I've put lacquer onto the necks of the guitars, and it was an acrylic lacquer which I actually applied using a sponge applicator. Working on the second neck, putting the frets in. One was a 3-string, one was a 4-string, and I actually kept the 4-string myself. That's what you're listening to now, and Billy, he had the 3-string. You can see the pickups there, the gold pickups there, a blues jazz pickup. I love those pickups. And I'm drilling the holes now for the tone and the volume and the jack plug. But again, to keep the surface clean, I put masking tape on to drill the holes through. And the actual acoustic holes, they are made up using curtain rings and glued into the satin walnut. Diodori strings, phosphor bronze strings, a lovely warm balanced tone to them. And on the 4-string you're using the it's tuned to open G, which is G, D, G, B, so you're using the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th string on the 4-string, and on the 3 strings you're using the 2nd, 3rd and 4th. I finished the outer of the boxes with the orange oil, but it was in the winter, so I made sure that the wood burner was on, because you need at least 12 degrees for the oils and the finishes to harden properly. And there we're using the stain on the back. It was the Cuprinol stain, which was Jacobean dark oak stain. The neck was just left the natural colour. The stain was on the inside of the boxes because I wanted the boxes to look dark through the acoustic holes. Here we are, we've got them both hanging there as the acrylic lacquer dries, again applied with a brush. So there's all the hardware. We've got the machine heads, and we've got all of the parts for the bridge and the pickups in there, all in brass, all in gold. Tune them all up into GD-GB and GD-G. So they've got quite a nice tone to them. Now I've got the pink ivory knobs. They are the knobs that I use for the tone and volume. I also use pink ivory for the nut and for the bottom of the bridge where the strings were. Using my brand, I branded the tone and volume knobs, and I also used the brand on the guitars, on the bottom of the guitars and on the heads of the guitars as well. an art in the bottom left hand corner. There's a little brand next to the corner blocks as well. So these were the blanks that I used to make the jewellery boxes. I ended up using walnut blanks, and I used the satin walnut for the tops and the bottoms of the little jewellery boxes. So I started the jewellery boxes off just by drilling a 55mm hole to hold them on the chuck, turned them into large rings, and then laid the tops into them so that the walnut was in the top, branded them on the underside where the white wood was, and then there we are, they finished. Tried them out with the amps and had a lot of fun doing the project. So hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.